You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
You know, I think we've started because we started counting off and then there was nothing there. So hello, everyone, and welcome to another incredibly exciting edition of Global Trade This Week. I am Pete Mento, and with me as always is the certainly more exciting part of the dynamic duo. I don't know if he's more dynamic or just more educational and certainly more well-read and prepared. My good friend, Doug Draper.
Hey,
as
Pete,
always,
thank you.
Hey, Doug. Hi, Doug. As always, we are brought to you by our great friends at Cap Logistics. We hope that for those of you who are looking for a logistics provider, that you will always take a look at our friends at Cap Logistics. Keenan's back at the booth, keeping this thing running. And we have got a hot slate of hot takes for you this week. And because I did the intro, that means that Doug has the first shot, the first crack at it. Doug, you got a good one for the first one this week, buddy. So why don't you go ahead and give it a shot.
Let's roll. We're going to butter that biscuit and take this thing down to the holy. Not even sure what that means.
How long today did you practice? You were so excited to get to say that. You've just been
No.
Go ahead.
Seriously, Pete. I swear to God, I made that up like 2 seconds ago, and I don't even know what a holy is. So we'll call it good.
All right. Butter that biscuit. All right, buddy.
I know. With the jelly on the side. So here's the deal with this one. Is we reach out and we say, we want your comments, your feedback, give us some topic suggestions. And this one actually came from a friend of mine that I used to work with here in Denver. Eons and eons ago, we're both well-versed in our industry. A woman named Laura Greenstreet, who owns her own business out in Memphis. She's an IMC Intermodal carrier and is very well-versed. And she said, hey, you should probably think about this. So here it is, Laura, this one's for you. And it's more discussion on rail traffic and kind of the news that rail has just started to make here in 2022. This one specifically that Laura said to reach out and talk about was Schneider and Knight and Swift flipping all of their Western intermodal business to the Union Pacific. And part of that goes to something we spoke about, I think it was last week, Pete, where the rail is ripe for marketing their carbon footprint, carbon neutrality, and really hyping it up. Because when Schneider made their press release that came from them, their self-press release, the second statement down said that they will be able to save 700 million pounds of CO2 annually by working with this railroad that could move a ton of freight 500 miles on 1 gallon of fuel. Now that's phenomenal marketing. And I know there's lots of other reasons out there, but it just validates some of the stuff that we talk about, that there is true value in moving things on the rail. Here's the problem is the rails are pretty congested like everything else. All of a sudden you're going to drop an insane amount of volume into the Western region, which, oh, by the way, is where some of the largest ports in the world are, aka LA Long Beach. And I'm wondering, is the capacity going to be uber tight and the rates are going to go up? What does that mean for service? The other piece to this that was of interest is that there is going to be some investment on infrastructure, not through the government's, and Mayor Pete's take on things, but they're going to throw some of their own money. But the cool thing about it, Pete, is it's all related to terminals and connectors, which we've talked about before. So you can haul ass on the road as fast as you want, but when you got to get off the exit ramp and unload your shit, if it's not efficient and fast, it doesn't matter, right? So I think it was great that the railroads are identifying that the connectors are an important area in which they need to invest, because to me, that is the success of pushing things through the pipeline and everything else. So I love the fact that the rail's making some news. I love the fact that the CO2 and the greenhouse aspect of it has continued to grow. I'm nervous about this insane amount of volume that's going to get dropped, what that means for rates, but we shall see. I'm kind of a mixed bag on that one.
Yeah, when I was a little kid, I wanted to make my dad and my mom breakfast, and they had bought me this really cool fishing set. And there was these little plastic fish, and they had magnets on the mouth, and I had a little fishing rod, and it had a magnet on the hook, and I would, I'd flick the rod out there, and the little magnet would hit the fish, and I'd reel it in. And they were both asleep, and I was 4 years old, and I put one of the little plastic fish with the magnet on it in the toaster to cook it for my mom and dad in our brand new house in Fort Worth, Texas. And I lit the toaster on fire, and then I lit the kitchen on fire.
Oh.
Yeah. Sometimes really good ideas backfire terribly because no one has put a lot of thought into the consequences of their actions. And I love the idea of, see, it always comes back. This is the difference, Doug, right? Doug, you are a journalist. I am a storyteller. Okay, man?
Yes.
This is the difference here. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm reeling them in with these nostalgic stories of my childhood and what a rapscallion I was as a child, right? And and I honestly almost did burn down the house. That's a true story. I wish it wasn't true because I'm an idiot. I'm still an idiot. But when I was a kid, I was seriously an idiot. But this idea of trying to do the right thing but not thinking it through, the infrastructure, it doesn't matter what. Great, you're going to put more stuff on the rail. How, right? And we're going to move stuff on rail, and we're going to move it with very little. There's no room. You can try to do all you want. There are no more seats left at the table. We can't put anybody else at the kids' table. There's no room at the inn. Okay, we can cram as many people as we want in the station wagon and kick the doors closed. You can't fit anybody else in it. And the rails itself, we need a total upgrade to the infrastructure on it. It can't take more weight and capacity. Have a conversation with people in Europe who are very jealous of the fact that we can double stack containers. Well, that's great, but we can't do that across the whole country. We have all kinds of infrastructure problems that are associated with it. Doug, I am 100% on board with you about the use of intermodal and the use of rail because it makes a lot more sense for congestion, makes a lot more sense for the environment. But we have two major problems. The first is we can't put any more capacity on it. And the second is our infrastructure is old and crippled. In this country, for all the talk and the whining that we have about where we are with all of our supply chain morass right now, it's all talk. We don't want to put the money into it to fix it. And it's frustrating because 20 years from now, when I'll put my dentures in to do the show with you, we'll be talking about the same problems because no one will have been willing to fix this infrastructure. It's absolutely revolting, man.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that you said about being a storyteller, thanks for clarifying that because I thought maybe you were drunk and not listening to me and talking about fishing into toasters. I was like, where is this going? But you're spot on. The ES&G and the whole concept, that is one hell of a story. And the narrative that the railroads can pitch on that thing is unbelievable. And I think that will overshadow some of the realities of what you just spoke about. So, yeah, all right, my man, what's your first go?
My first go was a conversation. I'll admit I didn't know what was going to happen with. I had a sort of a blind date web call that got set up between some executives at my company and executives at another. And it was with a company called Fleet Zero. And I was not expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. But this is a rather well-funded group of marine engineers who are building all electric container ships. U.S. flag. So that was also interesting. And they got a very interesting idea on how they're going to do it, where they're actually going to electrify containers. And they're going to use those batteries as the bottom ballast in the vessel. And, when they get to the other side, they're going to have already charged containers that are actually batteries ready to go on the bottom of the vessel to reload, turn it back around and put it back out to sea. They plan on using ports that are actually smaller. And over time, like anything else with this particular technology, it'll become more and more cost efficient. With me, I'm always Dr. Negative about this stuff, and I'm the first to admit I don't necessarily understand everything about battery technology, but I'm rooting for these guys. I'm rooting for these guys for a whole bunch of reasons, I'm rooting for these guys for environmental reasons. I'm rooting for these guys because they're American flag vessels. I'm rooting for these guys because I want this American technology to work. And I'm rooting for these guys because I want this idea to be a reality. I want to see the next technological leap, from steam to diesel, from diesel to electric, from sail to steam, from steam to diesel. I want to see it work, man. And I like the guys I talk to. They're total nerds. They let me ask some really specific questions for as much as a decky can ask about engineering, and they were able to answer it. So I don't know, Doug. I know they're not the only people working on the problem, but I really like their idea for the solution. So electric ships, man. There's been a lot of naysayers. Just want to know what you think about it. I'm really rooting for them, but I know where the problems are associated with it. Whatever I can do to support the idea, I want to. What's your take, Doug?
Yeah. Well, I was, when I got your topics, I don't know, a few minutes ago, I did a quick Google, and I tried to Google electric steamship to see what that would pull up. And the first thing that popped up was electric steamers from Bed Bath & Beyond. And I'm like, no, that's not what I wanted. It said
First of all, you're supposed to call me so I can get them for you from Wayfair. What are you going to Bed Bath & Beyond for?
Well, that's what Google sent me to. So, and then the second hit was the Yampa Valley Electric Association, which is the power company up in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. So my whole point is that it's a good story. We're going to talk about stories. And I think that there's a lot of potential. I think the reality of that is decades away. But the one thing I've not thought of, because we talked about this with planes before, is that you need to generate a lot of power to get off the ground with an airplane. So to get more power, you make bigger batteries, which means it weighs more. And then you need more power because it weighs more to get it off the ground. So then you put in more batteries, and you see where that's going. I love the concept of using the batteries for a secondary purpose in the vessel, which I think is pretty slick. So, hey, man, I'm all for it as well. I just don't think that you're going to lose your dentures, let alone put them in by the time that thing is happening. So.
I hope it works, man. I mean, I think you and I definitely, Keenan, the people that we run with, all of us would like to see it work. So I'll tell you this much: the first company that pulls it off, I'll definitely be the first in line to put a container on it. So I hope it's an American flag vessel that does it too. That'd make me awfully proud. Yeah. And that brings us to halftime, buddy. What you got?
Well, I just our two favorite topics. Everybody that watches the show knows that my annoyance comes from drones, and I'm glad that I haven't seen a lot of information about it. I haven't talked a lot about it. You haven't brought it up. And conversely, yours is crypto. And so I saw something just this morning that got me excited that the new mayor of New York, Eric Adams, he's going to take his first 3 paychecks in crypto. And he is trying to push, it's a PR play, and he's trying to push, having the Big Apple crypto center of the world. And then I saw that the mayor down in Miami was trying to one-up him and said, well, I'm going to take my first 4 paychecks in crypto because he's trying to make Miami the center of the crypto world. But here's the funny thing, Pete. I was doing more research on this, and the very first retirement community in Florida that's going to take crypto as rent is Del Boca Vista. There you go. Shot it.
Are you happy with yourself for this one?
The first one, Pete, literally was off the cuff, but that one I had planned.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's just start with the whole crypto morass. Crypto is stupid. If Eric Adams or anybody else wants to get paid on crypto, that's cool. The more that you make it a mainstream where the olds like me decide to get paid on it, the least cool it's going to be. And the more that it's aligned with these types of transactions, then the more it's going to be just, regular old boring something that's associated with a regular old currency, and then the less powerful it becomes. And if someone who's a member of the government is being paid in it, I mean, I don't know. How punk is that now? I'm not sure it is. I don't know, man. Every time I hear more and more about this stuff, the more it starts to sound like cool jazz instead of speed metal. I'm just not cool with cool jazz. Sorry, man.
All right.
Del Boca Vista. Just knock it off. All right. So my halftime, brought to you by our good friends at Cap Logistics, is a little more aggravated than that one. I talked about curling a few weeks ago, yesterday, Poor Amy found herself sitting on the couch with me watching some of the Olympic trials for curling. Yeah, that happened.
That was televised.
It was. It certainly was televised. Yes, and I bet you it had quite a viewership. No sport that has judging rather than scores is a sport, and therefore, if it has judging, it should not be in the Olympics. Case in point, figure skating, like dressage with horses. And I agree with Snoop Dogg. Why are the riders getting medals? Why isn't the horse getting a medal? The horse does all the work. Like diving, synchronized swimming. If a panel of people have to sit there and look at what you did and be like, I don't know, I'm going to give it like a 9.7. No, it's not a sport. I'm sorry. It's not a sport. If there is not some way for us through mathematics to decide if you won or lost based on some kind of real meaningful, no, not a sport. I'm sorry, bud. Curling is a sport because it's like darts. You either put the stone where it's supposed to be or you do not. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Figure skating, not a sport. Ice hockey, sport. Racing, a sport. Swimming racing, a sport because you're up against a clock. One person's faster than the other. And I'm gonna die on this hill. Okay, figure skating, very difficult to do. Very impressed by it. Not a sport.
Well, that's a line in the sand for sure. I would. It doesn't bother me or have a. So here's the take, Pete. I agree with you. My whole family, me included, my kids, swimmers. Right? There's a clock. There's a time. There's a winner and a loser. It's very, very defined. Everybody can agree upon it. But again, doing a little research after you popped me your topics a few minutes ago, in 1988, one sport was judged. That was figure skating. 2022, 17 sports have judges inserted to define winners and losers. So I think that's kind of a little crazy. I like figure skating. I like some of the judging things, so I'll watch it regardless. I can't tell you who's better than the other one. I just like watching it. So, but you're right. It's trending in that direction just in the last couple of years. So interesting point. I agree with you in some instances.
Nobody likes a boxing match that ends in a decision. Nobody.
Yes.
Nobody.
That is
right.
Very, very true.
All right, man. Well, that leads us to our last two topics, and I think we're going to end on a pretty good note this week. So
yes. Go
ahead, buddy. What you got?
Yeah, this one's just, it's kind of a rah-rah speech, and I wanted to just give a shout out because I have been pretty hard on the U.S. Postal Service in the past.
Yes, you have.
Yes. So I'm going to put that aside right now because I think there's a great opportunity right in front of the government, the USPS, to have some success with all these COVID tests that are being rolled out. I love the fact that we're pushing it through the government and letting the USPS take the lead on it. So I really hope they succeed and get these things delivered. The thing I'm afraid is that if you look at every single story around COVID, it's always negative, right? Always negative. It doesn't matter if it's number of cases or the vaccines aren't as strong as they wish they were. I mean, everything is negative. So what's going to happen is the narrative on this and the story is going to be the tests are too late. What's the point? It took 7 days instead of 5 days. All this kind of stuff. Well, COVID's still going to be around for a while. So even if I get my test in 5 days and it may not be in time to test for the moment that I'm in now, if regardless of what carrier, if you need something right now and you order it and you think it's going to come next day, then you're foolish. If you need to take a test and figure it out, go take things locally. There are rapid tests that you can do. So I'm afraid that narrative is going to overstep the bounds that the post office hopefully will do a pretty gosh darn good job to get it out there. And so what? If I get a test and it's in my back pocket, so next time I have a concern or next time I'm going to engage with loved ones or I'm in a situation I need to make crystal clear I'm safe to be around other people, I will have that test with me and I will use it and that'll be a success. So good luck to the post office. They have a daunting task ahead of them and I hope they win. Hope they succeed.
Yeah. If somebody gives you a free barbecue sandwich, you really shouldn't complain if it's not hot enough, Doug.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
So that's my mom, Sonia. That's some of her wit and wisdom coming through right there.
Yeah.
here's the deal, man. The government did a very good job of making it next to impossible for anyone to get any tests over the past month because they more or less cornered the market on the production and importation of any of them. So we were unable to get any of them during the worst part of the Omicron spread because there was no access to any of them because they had more or less cornered production and fulfillment of them. So now that they are available, they'll make them available for free. There's no such thing as free. They're making them available at taxpayers' expense. And they're providing them to you without any cost to you for shipping. Taxpayer provided. You're not paying for them. You're not paying for them to be provided to you for cost of shipping. Don't complain if the barbecue sandwich ain't as hot as it is as you wanted it when it finally gets to you. All right, man? No, I'm not happy about it either way. I got all kinds of anger management issues with regards to this COVID test situation. But they're free of charge. They're taxpayer paid. The Postal Service has done some incredible things over the course of this pandemic. The fact of the matter is you can still send a letter from one side of the country to another for what, 38 cents? Is that what it is now?
No. I think it's 49. I don't know. The fact that we don't even know that and we're American is pathetic.
Yeah. I buy forever stamps and I slap them on there, and all I know is it gets there, and I never have to worry about it. So the idea that we can sit here and make fun of the Postal Service or give them crap for it, it's absurd. They won the bid to move these things. They're the most cost-effective way of doing it. Letter carriers every day go out there and deal with what is a terrible job. They do not get nearly enough credit for what they have to put up with. I watched the news story about one the other day. The guy walks literally 10 to 14 miles every single day, 5 days a week. He's been doing it for 22 years. You know, and he doesn't make very much money for that kind of work. So, looking at what they've got to do to make that money, looking at what we've got to do to get this thing done, don't complain about how hot your barbecue sandwich is once you get it.
I love it. Nice. Well, speaking of barbecue sandwiches, why don't you go ahead and take us home?
Yeah, I love a sandwich. I don't think I've had a piece of bread in I don't even know how long, man. I would destroy some carbs right now. But anyway, yeah, I have been really focused on necessary means of being able to obtain as much OSHA capacity as possible. And what I'm learning in this new environment as 2022 winds down my contract season is that the BCOs, the beneficial cargo owners, such as the company I represent, and many companies like us, we get the first crack at cargo because carriers want to work with us. You know, we're very stable and reliable, pay our bills on time, and we move large amounts of freight. And we have a pretty good idea of when we're going to move it and where it's coming from. And we're not going to resell our space. It's our space. They're not in competition with us, right? And there's no middleman, so they don't have to worry about it being resold and resold and resold. Then it gets sold to the NVOCCs, the non-vessel operating common carriers, who are in direct competition with these large shippers, shipping companies. And then it goes to the spot market, which is where, if anyone's been paying any attention and you haven't been living under a rock for the past year, things have been insane. Spot market prices right now on the 24th of January for most Chinese-based ports to the West Coast are running still in the $20,000 range for 40-foot ocean containers. If you don't know somebody or, something wasn't there. One of the things that people have not been doing enough of are shippers associations. And this is where a group of BCOs can come together to negotiate collectively with large volumes. Most of them, however, have not been done by large BCOs. They've been done by medium-sized ones where they've gotten together and allocated directly with these carriers. I've wondered if the time may have come for a lot of very large BCOs, big retailers to get together and collectively try to negotiate millions of FEUs, millions of TEUs, because it would probably be in the best interest of carriers to work directly with us and carve out those NVOs. And it would definitely be in the best interest of the BCOs because we'd be able to get long-term, maybe multi-year contracts, which would also be great for the carriers because they could go to banks and they could say, look, we've got a 2-3 year contract for a certain amount of capacity. This is definitely going to be there. Give me a loan for some new ships, for new infrastructure, whatever the case may be. It's good for shareholders too. And it's great for the retailers who then can begin to forecast capacity and cost and have a better idea of landed costs going forward and not have to worry so much about the spot market. I think we're going to see more of them. There are some issues with them. You have to worry a little bit more about your liability. And, frankly, NVOs are not going to want to work with you, which means freight forwarders are going to have a real problem with you. You're going to have to take on more and more responsibility for logistics yourself. So I think the time may come because of technology and visibility to everything. But this might be the case, Doug. I think we might be seeing the dawn of an age of very large shipping associations, my friend.
Yeah. When you shout over shipping associations, I kind of took a different route as far as what I thought you were going to talk about. But this one makes sense. Here's the concern when you're just chit-chatting right there and telling your story is that what about the little guy, right? Everything that you just spoke about is phenomenal. If you have hundreds of thousands of containers and lots of dollars, kind of like the trucking industry. You see the Swifts and the Schneiders that and out there, but in reality, that represents a very small percentage of the number of trucks that are out there. It's the small guys that have, and I don't know the exact number, 10 trucks or less. Maybe it's 12, maybe it's 5. I don't know. It's a very small number of assets represent like 85% of all the trucks that are on the road. I don't know the statistics to that level in the ocean freight industry. But I'm just afraid that what you talk about would be two things. One, it's good if you're a big guy. What about the little guys? I think that's going to shoot up their rates. So that's kind of a concern that I think would pop up. I said two things, Pete, and I just forgot the second one.
Well, in the words of Stalin, who I tend to really try hard not to quote, the strong do what they will and the weak accept what they must. And I think in an environment where prices are going to continue to just get more and more problematic and where the carriers have really learned to control capacity in a much more meaningful way to their advantage, I think it's going to force BCOs to try to come up with credible and meaningful ways to be more intelligent about how they manage and master their capacity. And I think these smaller folks are going to have to lean on technology to find ways to do it for themselves as well. I'm sincere when I say, Doug, I think the freight forwarding industry is really in trouble. I think that there's always going to be a home for certain parts of what they do. But I think that the traditional freight forwarding industry as we know it now is changing. It's going to become more of technology platforms, software as a service platforms. It's going to become more real estate, CFSs, the ability to help manage physical infrastructure and digital infrastructure more than it's going to be those traditional models that we've seen so much in the past. And it's not going to happen overnight, but I think we're watching it happen right before us right now.
Yeah. That's we've spoken about this in the past, the dispersion. There's a whole thing I could go off on a tangent about dispersing and dispersing the power to the people, right? And a great analogy would be in the real estate industry, right? The guy that's out there that creates relationships and hounds it and works for every penny, and you eat what you kill, so to speak. You look at the Redfins of the world and Open Doors and all these online type of real estate firms, they're dispersing the control of selling your home to the individual. Same thing when I think about that is what you're talking about with the traditional freight forwarder, where you're brokering things back and forth, and you're a guy on the end of the phone you feel comfortable to talk to. Technology is going to eliminate that individual and disperse the control to the individual company, which I think is part of what you're talking about.
Sad state of affairs, my friend. But
yeah,
we'll watch it closely.
Yeah, well, there is no sad state of affairs when Cap Logistics is with us to promote and produce this show. Pete, that's not a very good transition, but I did my best. And we can't thank Keenan and the whole Cap Logistics team for making this show possible and putting up with all the nonsense that we come up. So I thank them. Pete, your storytelling is phenomenal. I swear to God, the funny thing is that people don't realize that this whole thing is 99% impromptu, right? Which makes it better because the expressions, the chuckle, it's not scripted, and hopefully people recognize that. So thank you for your storytelling. It's much appreciated. Thanks to Cap for putting this thing on, and most importantly, thanks to our listeners for participating and engaging with Global Trade this week. Until next week, Pete, take care, my friend. Good to see you.
See you, buddy. Good to see you too.
Take care.
Bye.